Sees it is. We're apparently live. Great. Can do this thing. So rusty. Thanks for joining us for the Drink and Think, where we usually get buzzed and then have sobering conversations. When I say usually, I mean this is the first time in like 8 months that we've done this.
Yeah.
I'm Jonathan Barry Duncan.
I'm Sasha R. Jones.
Find us on the links that are in the video description. We don't need to tell you who you are. You probably found this link through my account. I don't know. Did you ever link it?
I was just digging in the dirt for hours straight today.
Sasha does a lot of work in the yard, and some friends are accompanying us, or rather, we're accompanying some friends and not drinking alcohol, so we just have some apparently fancy sparkling water. And I haven't tasted any until now because I want it to be special. So yeah, let us know what you're drinking in the Twitch chat if you want to. And welcome. I'm really happy to have your attendance here. Now, for those of you who somehow do not know, my last Patreon post that was public, that was an article, was called Fuck Social Media and Fuck My Inability to Set Boundaries. That's actually linked in the description as well. And I thought that this post would just be something to say, hey, I'm frustrated, I'm bothered, I feel like things are hopeless when it comes to stuff being difficult, and I don't know, like I didn't expect what happened as a result of this post. So there's actually a lot to catch up on, even though this was posted mid-December. Many things happened that were very relevant, and we're here to talk about that. Spectraface having lemonade, that is not hard, so no alcohol here either. And DPM, thank you so much for the link in the chat, that's appreciated. Ewan's happy to see Sasha again. And OC is going to go drink some wine. Xerox says the post is enlightening as a read, so there, at least one person thinks it wasn't a waste of time. And 15 people liked it on Patreon, which is actually huge. So I had some notes here that's just like a recap on what that article is, just as a refresher for those that read it already, those who are still trying to decide why the fuck they should read 9,500 words about me on the internet. So there's a recap for my relationship to the internet since I was little. I talk about the Chet archetype, which it includes the idea of toxic positivity, which I learned last night in the stream thanks to a new friend. Toxic positivity is an awesome term. They're parasocial interactions, the nuance of navigating private accounts, and my experience of that being leaked twice. The back-end stats that Twitter provides, especially if you're a business, which is important but further skews a healthy social interaction from happening. The burden of being an influencer, why being unfollowed sucks, why it probably happened to you, what counts as successful, this generation's Garfield comics, awful things that happened to me online, and my pursuit of reconciliation and resolution. So it would be useful to talk very quickly about some of my context outside of the internet before I tell you about what's going to happen next, since yeah, you couldn't have scripted this better. It was pretty funny what bad thing happened to me like just a few weeks after I posted this article that wasn't related at all. So we are driving to Further Confusion, Sasha, myself, and our friend Eric, who's now our neighbor. And we are going to a friend's house. We were in San Diego the first time in my life, and these are friends that we only get to see one time a year at a convention. So yeah. It's a really rare, special opportunity. We're listening to Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers on audiobook, and one of my friends messages me saying, hey, you should probably know this is happening about you on Twitter. Oh, it's happening about me on Twitter. So I went online, I saw the screen caps, and it turned out that a handful of people were tweeting some very impressive lies about me, which were really heavy. There were at least 2 public artist accounts. One was actually super, like well over double what I had for followers. So they had like over 15K. And then there were a few public accounts that were not that, but still creators. And then there were a few anonymous vent accounts that were still public. So I thought it'd be interesting, maybe twistedly entertaining to say what I'd been accused of. So I've been accused of being a human trafficker who was too gay and too sad to get a bride in any other way but purchasing one. So I had her shipped from Africa for $10,500. So I was accused of that happening. So I was also told that my personas are racist. I was also I also read privately that I target women to harass them under the guise of commissioning them. And yep, so those are the highlights of that. I had a friend in the background that was trying to like put out a lot of fires. They're a respected furry that puts in a lot of work to try and make the community a better place and the world at large. So she's garnered a lot of trust for the energy that she's extended. And yeah, this friend was the one that was telling me about all the awful stuff that was happening. And some really interesting things happened when she read about these lies. She said that, you know, as not only as someone who's known me for years, but also met my ex-wife and her family, she could confirm that none of this was actually true, but the first person that lied about this said that they heard it all firsthand from me. So why would I say all these things that aren't true at last year's Anthrocon? And because I meet people that have facial blindness and I forget names too. I don't remember interacting with this person, but they said so many things that just don't make any sense at all.
I'm assuming that they didn't know what the word dowry meant.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of nuance since I did have a dowry, and that was a really complex process that pretty much, like, yeah, I had to give money to family members too as a sign of good faith and a tradition, but the things that I was purchasing were things like lingerie, nice lingerie too, like it was expensive. I know how to shop for bras now. Soaps,
All at the
fabrics.
the family's request.
Yeah, like these are all things that they wanted to be fun and to be exciting and to prove that I could provide for her. And they went easy on me because I'm a foreigner too. So it's really all things to say, hey, you're going to take care of the most precious person in our family, right? Like that's the point of the dowry. It's not human trafficking. I didn't go to Africa, meet this person, and mail her over. I met her in Indiana in my Christian college when she was an art therapy major.
In your shitty college.
Yeah, it was a really not a great college, and I don't recommend it. But yeah, there are lots of things that this person said where I thought, there's no way I said this because of this, and there's no way that's true. So how does something like this happen? The very popular artist was just like, oh, my partner's telling me this about someone. I'm going to gossip about it because it's fun. And they didn't include my name, but then someone else eventually did include my name in the comments. And there were like 99 people who liked it, and like 30 comments chopping at the bit, like, tell us who it is, tell us who it is. So yeah, there are multiple people who are referencing art that could have only been me. I don't know how deep the lies go, and it was really difficult and scary. So let me see what else my notes say about this. Okay. Let's see. Okay, yeah, the goalposts were moved from my being a human trafficker to my just being a weird guy. Because they're like, oh, well, maybe he shouldn't have joked about X, Y, and Z. Well, chances are just because I'm smiling while I say something that sounds crazy, that's part of me explaining context from my past that I think is just unbelievable. It's actually true, though, and it's a very serious and complicated thing. So I say that because it's important, and I always deliver context to it. I don't just drop it there to make people feel like I'm doing something awful.
Yeah, you have a tendency to do the smiling through the pain thing, but it's a very specific smile.
Yeah.
So anybody who's known you for more than like an hour or two will recognize, oh, that's Jonathan going, wow, this really sucks.
There are people in the stream when they see me smiling and they're like, oh no, what happened? Yeah. You're doing the smile when the bad things happen. And that's the smile I do when I talk about it, because it was a stressful moment of my life where people meant well, but I had to navigate so many cultural differences that it was very hard on me.
So, yes, artist says people forget nervous smiles are a thing. This reminds me of being in high school, and my speech teacher who was really one of the coolest teachers I had in public school. He said, well, not always in public school, K through 12. He said that when they were watching the September 11th like live feed on the TV break room back, some years before when it was actually happening, and when like the second plane hit, one of the teachers just laughed because he just broke a little bit in that moment, and that was his instinctual response was to laugh because he was his reality was shattering. So, and like a lot of people were like, just do that.
What a sociopath.
Yeah, but no, that's a completely normal reaction to have and things like that.
And an even better way to word that is there is no one normal reaction. So we were listening to Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers on audiobook when all of this shit was going down, which was, it was funny that that's how that worked out. It was, there's no other word but coincidental, I guess. And the biggest point to leave you with for that audiobook is that you cannot tell when you meet a stranger exactly what's going on. In fact, if you are a professional whose job it is to determine if someone's telling the truth or lying.
Like a judge.
Yeah, like a judge or an investigator. Even if you have expressions mapped down to specific numbers and zones on a face, there is a negligible margin of success between the expert and the lay person. That's how hard it is to tell when someone's lying. Our judgment can skew in so many different directions when it comes to just meeting a person.
Yeah, and they found that programmers were able to write a bot that was able to predict more accurately when someone was going to be a repeat offender or something than the judges were able to.
Yeah.
Like someone whose whole job is, I need to see the person physically in the same room as me so I can see if they're making eye contact, if I can look for this, and this. And they found it actually made their ability to guess worse than an AI being fed information about cases and statistics.
Yep. So, all this to say, I was thinking, how does someone go from a point of me offering this context over 6 months ago to them just saying all these awful lies about me and never even reaching out once? They were also referencing my Patreon posts. So they had read that context enough to misrepresent what the dowry was and to say that I was just doing things to be shitty when it came to my personal paintings. And I trusted that person and anyone else that read that post with a deep part of myself. But they instead lied about it to shit all over me just to spill tea on Twitter. So how exactly does that happen? I have a few theories. When my friend was learning more details about me from this perspective, she was told that I, for example, corner women under the guise of commissioning them so I can harass them and overshare and make them uncomfortable, I guess as a sort of power play. And yeah, you could argue that I overshare things sometimes, but it's kind of a stretch because I let people's limits dictate what's happening. Like I only offer that kind of vulnerability in a conversation like this if that's being reciprocated. I'm like, come on, I do admit that in streams, I will offer myself even more freely if it's just in the context of a Twitch message because I want to normalize vulnerability and helping others. But they said that there were multiple women who were comparing notes on me for being like this. So I thought that's interesting because there were only 3 artists I talked about for commissions. All 3 of them were in Friends in 2016. Since then, I've only commissioned 1 artist, and Nas is not a woman as far as I'm aware. And that was an online commission. And I don't think he was weirded out by it. If so, Nasir, please feel free to tell me. I'm open to that. Anyway, I talked to one friend who I commissioned who's NB, but they are designated female at birth. So I figured maybe there's a miscommunication here or whatever. And they said, oh, I'm really uncomfortable that someone may use my position or interaction to make lies because I don't know what you're talking about, but I can keep thinking about it.
I'll let you know if I ever remember a thing that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I was kind of angry hearing that because I was like, okay, I knew this was full of shit. I went to check in on my friend that I did actually commission, she's mentioned at the end of the article on Fuck Social Media. She's the first person I reconciled things with because she felt like I had some sinister intent to something I did but couldn't remember specifics, apologized, and said she trusts my intentions now. She blocked me after these lies. So that's interesting. I don't know why that is.
And that hurt you more than the whole rest of it.
Yeah, her blocking me hurt me more than everything else that happened because it was scary for me to reach out to her and say, hey, have I made you uncomfortable in person? You mean enough to me that I really want to reach out and make sure we work things out because I've loved our online interactions. And yeah, after we had a heartfelt discussion and I was excited to see her in person, especially because of all the mutual friends she has and how supportive she's been of the people I love. She blocked me. And that made me feel super shitty, and there's nothing I could have done about it. Someone lying about me on the internet with all these unfounded things had ended with her blocking me, but I also commissioned her in 2016. So I was thinking, oh, maybe she's lying about me in the background, and it was easier to block me than to actually talk about any of this.
Because, I mean, like, in your messages, you also said to her, like, no one's entitled to follow me or do anything like this, like, or obligated. I would never want someone to feel like that was something they owed me, regardless of what our positioning is. Like,
yeah, because she said, well, I'm going to unmute you, but if it's okay, I'm not going to follow. And I'm like, yeah, like, don't feel obligated to follow me. That's not how this should work. Yeah, she blocked me. And we still have lots of mutual friends.
All you're really asking for is to be communicated with.
Yeah, if I've wronged someone, let me know, because I want people to feel loved and supported. So
even just I'm doing this because you're a poo-poo pants and I'm not going to let you answer back. Even that would have been better.
Yeah, like, even if someone's like, you're fucking up and I'm like staying away from you, like, at least I know a thing happened. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the lies I wasn't too keen on. That wasn't my favorite thing that happened. Tea spilling's a nice hobby, right, DPM? So something else that's important to understand about this with these trends is that every person referred to me as a popular artist. Mm-hmm. Even a call out post from October that was all lies about me too, minus my saying I distanced myself from this person, they called me a popular artist. So I have good news, everyone. I'm a popular artist now. It's official. Every single person who shat on me said I was a popular artist. And what that means is if I'm popular, then I should be dismantled and I should be deplatformed and canceled. So now if you hear a mean thing about me, don't worry about whether it's gossip or not. That means you're punching up because I'm the strong one, right? Because I'm a popular artist.
You're viewed as having power, and if they think you're using it poorly, they view that as threatening.
Mm-hmm. So when I mentioned about targeting multiple women under the guise of commission, which again wasn't true, and I didn't have enough money for these commissions they're talking about, nor had I commissioned people anytime recently, nor were all three of them women or anything like this. I just don't commission much people in general.
Yeah, when that was said, like, even Eric in the backseat of the car was like, you commission people.
You gotta speak up.
Oh yeah, even our friend in the backseat of the car was like, you commission people? Like, you've done that? Okay.
Yeah, I don't do commissions much. So Sasha hypothesized, especially since these instances don't check out at all, that my targeting women makes me sound more predatory.
Yeah, because if it's like a woman and some envies, then it's kind of like it just doesn't have the same punch.
The first person's like any pronouns. They're like gender. Yeah. So it's that's a stretch first off. But if you want to make a case for that, I guess you could if you wanted to so bad.
Well, and this goes in the same vein of like trying to extend victimhood to people that are viewed as, that are being played as victims, and that also extends to the case of your ex-wife, where saying that she was a mail-order bride is like, that completely removes her agency as a person and like assumes, she's, an immigrant, so she must not have had the, capacity or independence to make this decision properly. She was desperate. No, like, that's not what that was at all.
She grew up in a safer, nicer place than I did. And she was smarter than me and cooler and more adventurous. So yeah, I'm going to get back to her agency soon because that's an important detail. So aside from a few friends mentioning on Twitter in some responses, and that wasn't many of my friends, I think there were no more than 5 tweets that people sent out saying, oh, this doesn't sound like Jonathan. No one ever asked for proof. There wasn't a single person that's like, wow, that sucks, because you can't take a defensive position in favor of someone who's just been called out for a thing without you sounding like an enabler. So why in the world would anyone who doesn't know me speak up on my behalf or be like, wow, this sounds really extreme? The whole point is that it's extreme. The point's that I'm popular and I do otherwise wholesome work. That's what makes it such delicious gossip. if I didn't try so hard to love and support others, this wouldn't have happened. An anonymous account can continue to exaggerate lies. And in that context, it doesn't matter that it's a random. I have become a random person. I've become a punching bag. So the person who insinuated that I objectify black people because I have contrasting palms and soles on some of my characters, or that my personas are racist because I have a crow, a panther, and a spider monkey. The person who drew that conclusion, they're a public vent account that has 0 followers and 0 following. They are anonymous, so they can just shit on others and stir things up. And in the context of the energy being exchanged, they do not need to have any proof for that. They can just make that up. And I think they're saying, like, waves arms around, like, is it obvious now that he's being racist? And it doesn't matter that that's a lie. That's just like further extreme.
If people are already stirred up, they're not going to check.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
So this is something I've been asking for years. What do you lose by lying about someone who you're pretty sure is a piece of shit? Like, does it matter if you lie about someone? Because I didn't do any of these things, and I would have admitted if I did. I'm pretty much like professionally admit bad things I've done. I don't really have any secrets left. So, you know, I just don't get that cognitive dissonance. And I'm very sensitive to that because this has happened to me before. There have been times when I'd see people posting articles about ISIS, for example, and then they'll just have photos that are completely unrelated that show church explosion that happened in Egypt or something. And I'd be like, hey, this picture doesn't line up with the article, so you should be careful about the source. They just put it there so it would, you know, be more sensational as a heads up. And they're like, I can't believe you support ISIS. Well, I don't support ISIS. I just did a background check because this didn't look like the right architecture for this part in the world. And I thought that was pretty strange. So if they're not doing this, we need to be careful about these details. Just, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I had to remove them from my Facebook. That happened. Okay, so again, this happened to me because I have enough followers to count as a threat that deserves to be canceled, and if I'm popular, it counts as punching up and not punching down. And my work and platforms are about caring for others, so if I'm putting up a guise to take advantage of others, then I truly am a monster. If it's just there to bring people closer so I can destroy them. And the first person who lied about me, who apparently met me at Anthrocon 2019, but again, I can't confirm this because I have facial blindness and I forget names. And I meet hundreds of people per convention. So at first, I must have had a miscommunication with this person. But with time, their memory had corrupted, and they accused me of saying things that I know I wouldn't have ever said. For example, like calling my ex-wife my Nubian queen. Nubia is that's East Africa. That's the Nile. My ex is from West Africa. I know what Nubia means. I wouldn't have said that even as a joke past. I probably said it like in 2012 before I learned geography.
Even if it was the right region, you wouldn't have said something weird like that.
Yeah, like that's I'm on too good of terms with her family, and I love and respect her too much to have ever said that. So no. Like that's definitely
twirling villain level.
Yeah, so that's one of the many examples of things that just aren't true. Or like I bought her for like $10,500. God, I wish I had that kind of money. I wouldn't buy brides with it. I would pay off my college loans, or at least part of them. Please join my Patreon. But I wouldn't be trafficking people. That's not really my style. Yeah, anyway, so their memory corrupted. They accused me of saying things I know I would have never said. And they ran with the lies, probably without realizing that they were wrong because of this act of creation with memory. Then they told their partner, who took the opportunity to spread lies about me kind of as a joke. Like, they're like, wow, can't believe this is real. I hope that woman took everything he had in the divorce. Bye. And then they blocked me, and I didn't get to defend myself or have a discussion. So this liar was even familiar with my Patreon posts and misrepresented one of my personal paintings that was a very vulnerable and emotional thing for me to share. But something I learned later is that this person was a victim of abuse. And just by me reaching out to them on Twitter and saying, hey, I really don't appreciate you.
Through DM, too.
No, this wasn't through DM. Oh. This was a public tweet because they retweeted one of my things. Yeah. So it's just like they did it publicly where I could see it, and they didn't block me or anything. So I was just like, hey, I don't appreciate you doing this. And like, this really isn't okay. And if you were confused about this, you should have asked me. But Like, my ex-wife is way too cool to deserve this. This is very wrong. Like, you shouldn't be perpetuating gossip. And yeah, from that, and then a few friends saying that it wasn't okay and you should be ashamed for just spreading lies about this. They said they felt like they were attacked. So I attacked them for doing that, for saying what I said in that tone, saying you shouldn't have said these things, and I don't appreciate it. So I had to delete those comments so nothing came back to them because I didn't want them to feel unsafe. So imagine saying truly awful things about someone, and then when they say, hey, don't do that, that's not okay, you should have reached out to me, and being like, no, I'm being attacked. But here's the problem. If you're a victim of abuse and you're referencing a thing and you aren't the kind of person who's going to confront someone on this, especially if you followed my career for a while, then I don't think this person's lying by their own terms. I'm pretty sure they actually believe this stuff. And if they've experienced abuse, why in the world wouldn't they speak up when they remember that I've done a bad thing?
Yeah, if it reminds them of some of the worst feelings they've had in their entire life.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, they're going to want to push that away. That makes sense.
I just don't get why they do public retweet. Like, after the racist things, they did a retweet on the article that was about feet that shows, the images from my black hair persona that has white soles.
They might not have been thinking clearly if they were so deep in it. They didn't really realize, like, oh, this is going to bring this to this person's attention specifically.
Yeah, I guess not.
Like, imagine when you're having an intense emotional reaction, you're like shaking and just trying to navigate a thing. That's just one guess. I don't know.
It's possible, because it doesn't sit well. Like, you're that afraid of someone being that toxic and abusive, so you flagged them, and then when they're like, hey, this isn't okay, you shouldn't have done this, and then they're like, no, privately I'm being attacked, I feel unsafe. So yeah, after those lies, that's when the friend that I thought was my friend that I worked things out with blocked me. And let's see, I have notes. Here's what happened on my end as a result of those lies and this person blocking me. So I became paranoid and depressed for weeks, and my baseline was low. The person blocking me and these lies, it happened when we were going to further confusion. By the time we were setting up the table, which is what we need to do to survive, because MFF sales last year were bad. We had to scramble to...
By last year, you mean like a month and a half ago?
Yeah. Sorry, a month and a half ago. It was bad. We just barely got through our credit card expenses after further confusion sales, so we met our record, but there's a lot of stress involved in that. I had a zit inside my eyelid, and I had to...
so gross.
I had to like tend to this. I'm not going to be too graphic, but it's very painful. It was so painful, my body was exhausted, and I had to lay down while I'm holding my head and trying to... I had to take a break before going back to do more work.
Yeah.
While whilst one of my friends that I trusted had blocked me, and then more lies are continuing, and I can't put out any more fires. I don't know how deep the lies go. So that sucked. I was ready a few minutes too late for the setup, and I don't think I lost many sales over it, but that's really painful. And there's this artist, I can't even remember her name, but she was dealing across the alley from me, and she seemed really nice, and I was thinking, if this person read the lies about me on Twitter, are they going to block me too? What's the point in making new friends? All I had in this life was reaching out to other people, trying to, be as considerate and supportive as possible for every person I meet, to give them that level of love and care that they may otherwise not get. And then I was thinking, maybe I'm wasting my life. Maybe I should stop because of these lies about me. My baseline was way low, meaning that anytime I had a fun interaction, I was distracted, and it was nice to get to give a talk and do other things. But every single moment in my day-to-day where I wasn't being distracted, I was feeling like I was a monster. Another note I have is that I started hating my reflection in my voice. So I was thinking, if you thought that I was already someone who was human trafficking or racist or something, would you look at my face and be like, yeah, he looks like a fucking creep? Because let's be honest, I look weird. I get it. Who the fuck wears bandanas like this? Like, why are my eyes so big? That's kind of weird. Why am I staring right at the camera? Sometimes when I make eye contact when people talk to me, then I realize, oh, I have to look over here sometimes because I don't want it to be too intense. If that sort of stuff is happening while someone thinks I'm shitty, I can just stare in my reflection in the bathroom and be like, oh, I guess this is what a racist sex trafficker piece of shit looks like. This is someone that stalks women so he can get off on oversharing with them. He looks like the person in the mirror right now. So yep, I got to deal with that. I hated hearing my voice. I couldn't stream for most of the days because, oh yeah, I also wouldn't do phone calls. Like I didn't even want to play Smash Brothers with one of my friends because I knew that I would have to do a voice call and I couldn't handle hearing my voice. So I only spoke when was necessary.
I'd never seen you do that before. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot worse than like when you've been doing bad because of like things that were actually you trying to keep up with yourself or to be a good person, instead of it being like, I didn't meet my own standards.
Yep.
And feeling bad because that it was something that someone else thrust upon you, and that made it so much worse.
Yeah. Like, that person has no clue what they did when they blocked me, and it destroyed me. And I felt bad because just by telling people what my feelings were, I felt like I was being a burden. Who thinks that sounds familiar? Everyone here, I know.
For me, it's always easier for me to... But being angry at another person is very difficult for me. Like, you know this. Mm. It's something I deal with and I've made progress with through like therapy and things, because it's way easier for me to be angry at myself, even if I know that I didn't do anything wrong. It's still like, just, people are familiar with the dialogue that you get into in your own head where like, oh, you piece of shit or whatever, you're stupid. And it's just so much easier to do that. And so even with, and also anger is the most unpleasant emotion for me to experience. It hurts me. It feels like holding on to something painful and hot and bad. I don't like it. So I was angry at this, but it's easier just to feel hurt. And so mostly I just felt deeply hurt and frustrated and like, well, I can't actually do anything about this because like, obviously I feel compelled to like defend my partner who I've lived with for like over 2 years and I've seen, I probably know better than anybody else knows him.
Yeah,
and
sometimes better than me, let's be honest.
Yeah, like, whatever.
I can't believe you didn't see through all the lies that I was actually a human trafficker.
Yeah, and that you got to hang out with your ex-wife. We got to hang out with your ex-wife's brother, and
there's pictures on the fridge.
Yeah, it was a really cool guy.
Yeah.
And I hope we get to see him again this year, but like...
And I have my other little brother on my desk.
Oh yeah, a little photo of him.
Yeah, I must do that because it
looks like
twisted.
He's in a summoning circle with all the reference figures around him though. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so I was like, felt like I wish I could defend Jonathan about this, but like at least the tweet got deleted, and if I start talking about it, then that's just gonna make anybody who's vindictive or excited about drama is gonna try and seek out the thing, or like it's not worth drawing attention to it was the thing. So I was just like kind of venting on like my private account that has like a dozen people on it. That's it. And almost none of them are furries. It's all my old friends from years ago. But
yep.
It's like, yeah, because I was like trying to fall asleep some nights and just thinking about the things I would say in my head, and I was upset and just felt cornered. And I wanted, on one hand, I was like, I want these people to understand how much they really hurt you in a really deep, genuine way, because for them, it's just like, they just want to get the baddie or the perceived baddie. And it's like, I understand that feeling because there's lots of people out there in the world who really are very, very bent on making it a worse place for a lot of people, and they have no compassion and all that. I understand. But to just like, to fire wildly and then not look back, it's like, you're the worst person that could have happened to, because like you don't really get hurt unless someone hurts you on purpose. And,
yeah.
Because you understand those things, but this was really shitty, and it's like we try so hard to improve the spaces we're in, like anywhere we are, whatever that means, like that's consumes the energy of our lives, and we could both be churning out work that was easier to make and sold for more if we wanted to, but we both have bottom lines that are very important moral compasses in our lives. And so like things like, queer rights and, the environment and things like this are like, if we're not working towards expanding those goals and bringing people closer together and trying to prevent the world from being as shitty as it's going to be in, you know, another few decades, then it's not a thing we do generally. Like, you know, if I don't really take commissions anymore because I am so focused on creating work that centers on those concepts and that brings us forward in those discussions. So like, it's like, I don't deserve this. Like, it's not even about me, and I'm still like, don't they understand this is like our reputation is our entire livelihoods? And are you just going to assume that it's juicy, and so getting to get a bite of that juicy fruit is like more important than worrying about maybe derailing someone who's actually doing something important?
So there are two comments that we got from Astros and also from a duo that say, "Want to win, don't play." And in some contexts, yeah, the only way to win is to step back. And I was never, sorry, this makes me really burpy. Whoa. I was never that person who would back off from something. I would feel like I have an obligation to always share order, like bring order where there is chaos, or if I have the opportunity to serve someone, if I have like the language for it and the emotional spoons for it, then I must do it. And sometimes I've learned that I actually don't have the language for it. Someone's already thought what they thought and I can't change it. I have to back off. So that's why I had to delete any tweet, even though someone lied to me. And the person who deleted their tweet with the over 15K followers, they did a new one that said, okay, it said like, this is me trying to recall it, but it's rough. And again, I was blocked, and they deleted this too, by the way. They said, okay, my megaphone was too loud and too shitty, and it seemed I had some wrong information, but maybe don't make jokes about human trafficking or wrapping dowry beads around your dick or something in reference to this piece that I did.
Basically saying it was still your fault.
Yeah, they're just like, okay, I was mistaken about certain things, but this is your fault for the way you joked. You deserve this. Like, no, I fucking didn't. And when I see this from the outside, I'm going to remember every time this happens now, because this is not the first time someone's misrepresented me. Whenever you see something that's a horrible accusation about someone, it's okay to make safe choices for yourself and do what you got to do, but you have to accept that there's going to be a context to it. And I can't stop anyone from being like, wow, Jonathan's work was so sensitive and he was so nice to me. I guess he was actually a piece of shit this whole time who had a mail order bride and is abusing women. I'll block him now. I don't know how many more of my friends feel that way about me. I lost at least one friend, but you know, they can fuck off, because if they don't trust me after that, then I don't want them. I'm not going to talk to them. If they apologize, this is actually part of my healing process. If they are like, oh, maybe I actually fucked up by blocking you and by, you know, extending trust to you and then, you know, blocking you after these lies. I'm sorry, Jonathan. I'm going to say, well, you apologized way too late. Thanks for it now. I'll let you know in a few years if I accept your apology, because I have no hurry to do it. Because you've annoyed the fuck out of me and you've really hurt me. You hurt me more than you'll know.
Yeah, you spent days being, like, again, more angry at yourself until you could finally be angry at the person who hurt you.
One of my friends is much more popular than I am on YouTube and elsewhere. And he, at one time, had a YouTube account with 8 million followers that were harassing him. So he was trying to say, don't let it bother you. And it was spoken as a way more experienced person. I didn't have the luxury of it not bothering me. But yeah, the first step to me healing was allowing myself to be angry, because instead I was picturing how painful their contexts were if they had to block me automatically, or if these people had to lie, how easy it must have been to just spill the tea about me and leave the nail painting emoji, for me to just be reduced to that and then to never apologize. They must have been familiar with this happening to friends or themselves if it happened to me. And then I realized that does not excuse their behavior. What they did was really fucked up, and that's not okay. And I see where they're coming from, and I still can't justify it. I'm not making excuses for that. What they did was wrong, and I didn't deserve it. And just being able to say that was the first step of many in me slowly remembering who I was as a person, because I let those awful things control me. And even though they were ridiculous lies, I started believing them, and it was so bad that I didn't want to be touched by Sasha. I couldn't imagine having sex, or didn't want to eat. Much of the time I had to force myself to eat food. I didn't want to cook. I really didn't want to be myself. Everything I loved in life was taken from me because I believed things that strangers said about me.
And the pressure was on for you to get back to streaming too, because I'd been sick for like 3 weeks in December. You'd been sick for the middle of my sickness. And so it's like, we didn't really stream pretty much at all that month. And so it's like, we need to get back to this because we have to keep things rolling. If we stop running our businesses, then they stop.
Yeah. One of our friends says it's kind of heartbreaking. Honestly heartbreaking to see you so distraught at FC. Yeah, I didn't know how many of my friends I had left. So it was nice every time I would tell them about, they're like, oh, I didn't know. Oh shit. And then one of my friends who had something bad happen to them, they said, if it makes you feel better, I looked online for everything I could find and I didn't find anything. So, but they were probably blocked too. Anyway, we have a tweet that we wanted to share, actually 2 tweets that we thought were good and relevant. This is from illustrator Sarah Alfagi. I think part of the reason we are seeing this uptick in niche online inter-community drama/discourse across the board is because shit is so out of whack on the daily that folks are desperate to control and curate whatever spaces they do actually have influence over. Or maybe people have always been like this and we are just more in each other's faces because of the interwebs. So I like that quote. It's really useful because even though I read a stat that when it comes to international laws, at least in terms of violent death, but not speaking about other forms of abuse, human beings have never been safer as a whole when it comes to things like resource and cohesion. We still have a long way to go, and a single disease could wipe us out if we get the wrong chamber in the roulette. But yeah, it's because, at least we think it's because of having more visibility. When I guess there are too many people that think that injustice somewhere is injustice everywhere, and they actually took that seriously, which is too bad. And that's joking. When you have visibility to something that's negative and it's anywhere in the world and you can't do anything about it, your human brain is not designed to handle that kind of workload. And some of those things happen as soon as we wake up. That was the case for me. So that's one of the limits I had to set in my life. I don't check my whole Twitter feeds when I wake up on time, when I get out of bed, because it's just going to hurt me. Humans just aren't designed for that shit. So it's important to set that limit. You can't just bury your head in the sand forever because that comes with its own negative consequences. But yeah, that's definitely something that makes all of this that much more extreme. And I'm not saying we should settle for how things are, because that's also bullshit. So in context of blocking, our friend Kiki had some... Oh, got an extra... Keeps getting more retweets and likes. That's good.
It's gotten to the point where she's getting people who are just being bad jerks, bad faith, sea lining sort of stuff.
I dislike blockchains, aka blocking everyone who follows a problematic person. It really punishes those who aren't 100% online and up to date on everything, or follow someone for professional courtesy only. A follow is never an endorsement. Zelphus tweeted about that himself if you are interested in checking. Zelphus, hi when you see this recording. Kiki continues, that said, on one hand, I'd love if people told me that if I was following someone problematic. On the other, short of very aggressive and proven hate speech, Nazism, sexism, racism, I don't unfollow people necessarily because the internet has canceled them for some perceived slight. When I moved, I was only online for like 10 minutes a day, and even then wasn't up to date on things. I see people moving to blockchain, everyone who doesn't unfollow that recently revealed Nazi guy within 2 to 3 days, like some people are on vacation. I'd just like to know that everybody I've blocked has been for something shitty they posted, even if not to me. They can DM me to check out if they've changed, but I know I clicked block on purpose. By the way, if you're actively being harassed, that's very different than going person A is bad, so I'll block everyone who follows them, as I don't endorse those views. Where there currently isn't any engagement, I support all protective measures during active harassment. Not going to quote retweet this person to avoid harassment, but they run a personal account with 300 followers, and that's vastly different than people who are on site network finding or getting work. So this person's like, not to be whatever, but this idea that being blocked on Twitter is like this is huge punishment is kind of hilarious. Yep, that's from someone way on the outside.
Yeah.
So there's another saying that's useful here. I think this is from Brene Brown. When mentioning the power of vulnerability, she says that people in the cheap seats should not be commenting on those getting bloody and dirty in the arena. And that's the thing that I run into all the time. The people who shit on me and think that I'm just a joke for caring as much, and they think it must be a facade because they have to make up excuses for how I am the way I am. They can't possibly imagine I'm being genuine. They are people who don't extend that level of vulnerability, and they don't know how much it costs for me to care. They have no clue. They don't do anything like that themselves. It's so much easier for them to be edgy and funny from a distance and then throw stones. And I am in a position where I don't get to defend myself.
Yeah, even if it's like something I don't necessarily agree with, when I see people who are in the comments and they're making mean jokes, like they're reveling in getting to make the mean joke, I'm like yeah, I think the thing that the person in question did is bad, obviously, but like if you're rejoicing and getting to tear somebody else down, I never think that's almost never is a good thing, you know? Like, okay, Rush Limbaugh has lung cancer. Oh, it's too bad. But like, you know, I'm still not gonna be a piece of shit about things. I think that shows that part of what you're getting out of it is enjoying the process of picking up. It just always feels bad to me.
Yeah, Blink Lazy says, this news crap-pot on Twitter is the first time where I had multiple messages from absolutely random people informing me that I followed this other person, and it felt really gross.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so much context that people are reading into. And this is, okay, so like Kiki's mentioning, I had a case of online harassment where it was active. People went into my group to try and destroy it and to try and do bad things. This is a similar, like this is a related group to the people that sent rape and murder threats to me in my household. So when I see people following these accounts, I know that despite my intentions to try and be loving and caring and intentional, these people still wanted to fuck my shit up. So that's absolutely dangerous and toxic, and I'm not using those terms lightly.
That's why we don't have a Drink and Think Telegram group anymore.
Yeah, the Drink and Think Telegram group, it doesn't exist because of those people.
You see references to it in earlier videos, and so we're like, you know, these people came into the video to be, you know, bashy assholes and
bashholes,
yeah,
if you will.
And we couldn't lie and say the group is behind a paywall or something like that.
Mm. And I was a little buzzed, and then was like, yeah, go ahead. I have nothing to hide.
But the fact that they did that despite your goodwill is something you've used as evidence.
Yeah,
before,
because it's something I call centrist porn, because there are people who will view other people who are deemed toxic to be like, we need to give everyone a chance. And I'll be like, oh, funny you should say that. I actually gave people who are deemed toxic a chance for viewers like you, so I could say that that's not always the right thing to do. And it's because I value personal experience that I had to do that, or I'd be a hypocrite. So I'm sorry for the friends that I hurt who were trusting me in that group, but it was a public group too, in my defense, and they knew what was going down. So people told me to fuck off if they had to and left the group, but yeah. In any case, that's actually been a very, very useful thing for when I engaged about future interactions, because people know that I don't just jump to conclusions. I'm very, very intentional about when I say someone is being toxic. Anyway, if one of those people have been followed and it's mutual, or there are friendly interactions with them, and especially if I see that they haven't changed based on the feed, because, you know, I have to at least check that, I realize, well, at the very least, this person's a fucking idiot and they have no clue what's happening. So I'm going to at least soft block them. So it's just like, beep. A soft block is where you block someone, unblock them, so then they're not following you anymore. And yeah, I've definitely soft blocked people. In some cases, I've soft blocked or muted because I thought that blocking them would bring attention if they found out. Oh yeah, on that note, the Kiki Doodle thread that I shared, I learned someone had blocked me. I have no clue who they are. So that was really funny. Like, oh, there's someone with an anime avatar who mentions block lists and stuff I don't know about in their bio. Okay, well, that doesn't actually hurt my feelings much, so I guess I've grown up. Business Wolf is here and says, I got canceled for reminding someone who was doing a call out chain that their behavior was abusive and breaking website TOS, and they called me a pedo and blocked me. Business Wolf, why are you a pedophile? I can't believe you're a pedophile. Now we have to block you too. And you know, this also reminds me of something.
He's adding more to that.
Okay, I supported that person's art for years. Before that, I was supporting their Patreon. I played video games with them. At the drop of a hat, this person kicked me to the curb and wouldn't hear anything I had to say. So here's something else that this reminds me of. Our friend who's very much invested in social justice said that call-out culture is actually appropriating terms from social justice movements. Mm-hmm. And it really is appropriating if you think about it, because now anyone who's trying to talk about very significant, important issues to make healthy choices on a social level, that doesn't matter anymore, because there are people who have done this so aggressively and they are so tired or so scared that they just aren't interested in nuance. So this does not mean that we shouldn't try to set healthy boundaries and keep out destructive people, but it now means that, especially if you don't know a person at all, you should be a lot more careful before someone accuses them of a thing if you see no proof or whatever. There was something. Let's see if there's other stuff.
I'm gonna pee real quick.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can get to the comments too. Yeah, this is something that really colors my opinion of recent interactions and everything before this, because when I have been accused of things I am not, I know how much it damages me. It can destroy me. It can really destroy me for a long time. So people are getting exactly what they want. When I see people using me as a device to feel good about bringing suffering on someone else, despite how much I care, that's scary for a few reasons. So if you actually know me, you know something that my friends have said before is that, like, one of my favorite quotes from my friend Landon is, the thing you got to understand is Jonathan actually does care that much, and it's terrifying. So I describe my amount of consideration for others as like the dark souls of going through life. I don't recommend anyone does it, but I do, and I choose to believe it's worth it. But when shit like this happens and I'm being emotionally completely torn asunder by people who want to hurt me, it hurts because, among other things, I realize this is going to happen the rest of my life. And it's happening because I cared. It's happening because I did my best. There are so many people who want to make issues where there are no issues. There was a relevant video I saw. It took a long time to warm up, but it was about the whole poodling thing. And I don't know if you've heard this or not, but in Eurofrance, there are 3 people who were interviewed for a video, one of our friends included. There are 2 neutral opinions about poodling, being like, yeah, whatever, if you wear a fursuit piece where it's just the hands and feet and a head, whatever, that's fine, do what you want. And then there's one person who's like, I don't like seeing it at all, and I have a negative opinion. And he wasn't saying no one else can do it, he was just saying, I don't like it. And then people on Twitter were exploding over this issue, and there was an actual stat that a person checked, and it was like, what, less than 1%, right, of tweets? Less than 1% of tweets were from people that had a negative opinion on poodling.
Yeah, I'm just watching the chat scroll quickly as people like respond to remembering this fiasco.
Yeah.
And it was like people like blasted Eurofriends itself for this, but like they didn't have any opinion themselves.
And they have to apologize for no fucking reason.
Yeah, they're
now
like,
because
and someone made a rumor that that it was in like the EF like term like their bylaws or terms of service or whatever that you couldn't poodle, which is completely not true and never was. And maybe they said that because EF sometimes has like opinions on things that they do state. Like that's the only con I've seen that gave out like no Nazis here ribbons at registration, and they still do.
Yep.
And
yeah, that was the chair. And this is a convention in Germany, for the record, where
it's in Berlin. Like
yeah, like
they get to have that opinion.
Yeah, they put in their time, I think. They are allowed to have that ribbon at a furry convention.
Yeah, but they never had anything against poodling. They just asked what people at the convention did. And that's something that they do is, if you've never been to the con, this is actually pretty cool. They have a daily little newsletter about goings on and like, you know, here's something that happened last night around the convention. It's like, wow, this is really lively. They have this and they'll interview people and stuff like that. But an interview is not an endorsement of opinion. Like if you platform it really heavily and give it like the broad page and it's like, this is what this guy in a blue fursuit says about this. Oh, like that's different, but that's not what they did.
So we're approaching the hour, and Sasha said that a good idea for this would to be fuck, my English is slipping.
Well, let's
be some sort of actionable advice, right?
Yeah. Well, let's finish this statement. Like, basically, the takeaway of bringing up this thing was that people, like, it exploded, and there were like 1,000, 100, or 1,000% more tweets about poodling in a furry context than normal, and most of them were people being upset, making jokes that were in response to the outcry that were like, it is dumb opinion is not like there should be against this thing, and they only found like a few people who were actually being negative. It was less than a dozen or so, I think.
Yeah, it was less than 1%, I think.
And so like there's this huge explosion. People were all like, yeah, this, getting excited, and
there wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
There wasn't even a statistical instance that was even a percentage of people who were saying anything negative.
It feels good to decry something that you think is harmful or that you don't believe in. And I think that's the source of a lot of this stuff, is you want to take down the baddie, because there are so many baddies out there that you can't touch them. They're politicians, and they're taking away your safety, your rights, whatever, or people who have been like deliberately directly harmful to you in your own life, and you can't do anything about it. So when you do see that you have a space where your voice can matter and can be amplified, then there is definitely that temptation to try and do what you think is the good thing. So, okay, yeah, so as far as positive, like, what can we do to not be shitty?
Okay, so the first thing that I would consider, if we're going to build off of poodling rather than a more recent example that we'll be getting to soon, is that you have to make sure that you prioritize personal experience. So that's actually a rule I have in my chat. When we talk about religion or politics in my Discord and my Twitch stream, and could one of the mods or anyone link to my Twitch stream in the chat? That'd be appreciated. It's also in the bio, the video, twitch.tv/JonathanVare. I emphasize that this has to be personal experience. And if you're referencing something from a source, you have to share who it is you trust and where you're getting information from. Because something that was not an issue was people sharing opinions in a video about poodling. What is an issue is when you project opinions into other spaces, and then you have assumptions, and then you start, it becomes some sort of weird Ouroboros where it's feeding and destroying itself for no fucking reason at all. So if you keep it relational, if you keep it about things that happen to you, then that doesn't happen.
It's like the Twitch alerts are still running from people following the link. That's pretty funny. But anyway.
Cool. That's not a bad problem. We're happy to see it. So thank you so much for those follows.
We have to use OBS now because they don't let you use Hangouts anymore. I guess YouTube and Google, or someone sleeping on the couch. But
also, I can disable those, but I want people to see it and be like, I can follow, I'm going to. So thanks to Sirach and anyone else who followed. Mm-hmm. Now, the second thing, to talk about a very recent example, very vaguely, since I have a lot of thoughts of that I can't really share because there's just like a lot of information that's not at my disposal.
You would have to wait for cards to fall to see where they land and stuff like that.
So I'm working on it, and it's complex. Mm. I was talking with Sasha about this. Let's say that someone has been outed as an active member on a fascist website, for example, and it's hypothetical. Say that happened like in 2014 or so. What's the response to that? Because it's, we'll assume that in this case it's damning and very obvious that it's all true, and that there's not really discussion as to whether or not that's legitimate. Like, what would you say to that, Sash?
I think that regardless of the extremity of like the thing, or the concurrentness of the thing, or whether you believe, believe statements of denouncement and stuff like that are more current, then there has to be a path for reconciliation and de-radicalization, in any case, because if you completely obliterate someone, then you aren't giving them that chance, and other people who watch that happen who are in the same position, who maybe want to de-radicalize or are considering it, they feel like, oh, well, that's not a thing that can happen because, I'm in here now and I know that if I leave, then I'm going to get, obliterated anyway. So shouldn't I just stay with these people who are giving me things that I need and want and more convenient? So
does that mean you personally have an obligation to de-radicalize someone?
No, that's the next thing I was going to say. Yeah,
not at all.
Like de-radicalization
not your job.
As a process is extremely difficult, loaded, dangerous, because these are people you do not want coming to. Speaking of knocking at the door,
might be Allie.
Yeah, I think so. These are people who will come and get you if you try to leave them. That's the whole point. Our old neighbors here to hang out. So
you're so photogenic.
What was I saying? Yeah, so it's not your job to do that, and you can stand as far away as you want from it happening. But I would say to be careful about you should, if you're uncomfortable with someone, then you should remove yourself from the situation. It's not your obligation to do that, but I don't know. It's a different where de-radicalization is happening. People who do that often are compelled to try and to make more de-radicalization happen because they got out and they understand their context and how bad it was, and they want that not to happen to other people. So
while no one owes any efforts of de-radicalizing to anyone else in a toxic situation, if those people make it out, they become an invaluable resource to bring healing and restoration to many people,
and if you
in ways that no one else can.
If you do exit that situation, then you have got to work so much harder to counter everything you did while you were in there. Anything you might have said, you have to be completely transparent about that. You have to come clean on it. You have to you can't be in a position where people who still feel that way get to follow you and then think, but we know the code, we understand what's really happening here. No, you have to shut that down. You cannot allow that to be a thing that still happens.
And in my case, where there was not really any evidence about me and it was actually all lies that were said about me, something that I noticed is that I was just reduced to a joke, and not a single person was caring about me at all. I didn't have a single person when I hadn't done anything wrong that said, what if this is a mistake? And this doesn't apply to what we were just talking about. But again, when many people were lying about me, I was thinking of all the times that I saw someone where I'm pretty sure that they fucked up super hard and I don't want to trust them. If I care about them as a human being and I want to believe they can change, I'm going to set limits as I need to be healthy and to make sure people know if that's the case. But I want people to remember that you can't just demonize someone. There are toxic people who don't belong in places, and that's completely true. And I say this as someone who's, again, been the victim of rape and murder threats. So I'm very, very, very close to that kind of thing and have to reckon with it in ways most of you won't know. But even myself, I'm taking that as an opportunity to love other people and reach out. You don't have to do that.
And for you, loving people means holding them accountable as well.
Yeah, I have to hold them accountable.
And that does apply to the more recent situation, is absolutely you should hold someone accountable.
Yeah.
So
you should be completely intolerant of evil, and you have to offer a path for redemption if you're going to speak on the thing. If you can't offer that path of redemption, warn people, move on, set your limits.
Yeah. Ray is saying that it's also on other people to accept apologies and let people grow and change. Biggest problem now is people don't want to let people do that. Yeah, and it's also, it's like with what you said too. If someone's really hurt, then they don't owe you accepting that apology or healing from it or forgiving you right away.
Yeah.
I'm
not going to forgive those people for a while.
In some cases at all. They're completely valid if certain people are just done with a thing.
Yeah. So. And I do want to forgive those people eventually, but at least for the time being, they can go fuck themselves because they really fucked up, and that's not okay for those people that hurt me. Mm-hmm. And if they want to be my friend, I'm going to hold them accountable first. And on that note, thanks for being here, everyone, for following me on Twitch. Please support us on Patreon. That's the only reason we can afford to do this. Allie's here. She's going to work on Sasha's body. We just got on Medicaid, but there are a lot of probably useful medical things we can't afford. So yeah, if you give us money, it's going to go towards stuff like that. We're not just going to blow it on stuff we don't need. Although sometimes I really do like ordering a pizza, and I'm not going to stop that.
Except for these, apparently.
The sparkling waters we didn't
Usually
need.
we get the cheapo ones. These are still not too bad.
Thanks again for your love and kindness, everyone. Make healthy choices. I hope to see you at the next Drink and Think, or especially in my streams. And please follow Patreon for free because the articles are put up there for free. Bye, friends.